Joe Manchin. We've sold our futures and you've gotten rich doing it. You sick.
Well, there hasn't been a whole lot to be happy about this year in the world of news, but this video from climate activists is something to enjoy. This is from the Climate Defiance group. I'll get to more from them in a second here. This is a protest of Senator Joe Manchin, the conservative Democrat of West Virginia, during a study group that he was invited to at the Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics. And this is where these climate activists barged in. So as they write here on Twitter, we just called Joe Manchin a sick F. We humiliated him in front of a herd of Harvard elites. He squared up. We held firm. Barbaric murderer, hideous fiend. He torches humanity and laughs. Check this out.
Joe Manchin. We've sold our futures and you've gotten rich doing it. You sick fuck. How dare you? You sold our futures.
You don't want to sit down somewhere so you can talk?
I'm not going to sit down. You've received more funding than any other senator.
You made millions out of your position. You drive a Maserati.
Valley Pipeline goes right through West Virginia, which are your constituents.
These people came here.
Support this pipeline?
The pipeline they should support because it has energy going to.
Not your futures, not your profits. The Mountain Valley Pipeline will eventually be one of the many pipelines that the government gets to everybody.
That's the same for yourself.
We'll get back on track here, guys.
Protect our futures, not your profits. Protect our futures, not your profits. Protect our futures, not your profits.
Great work there from Climate Defiance in protesting Joe Manchin, in particular on the Mountain Valley Pipeline. I'll get to more on that in a bit. I'll also get to a bit of Joe Manchin's background, which goes to as well, any arguments against this kind of protest, people saying like, oh, you're not going to win people over, being mean like this. You win more flies with honey than with vinegar. First of all, if you're using that about Joe Manchin, there's no winning Joe Manchin over with honey unless you're a fossil fuel company because of the kinds of investments that Manchin has in the fossil fuel industry. Again, I'll get to more on that in a bit. But if you're talking about, just general like public polling, for example, you're not going to win people over by being mean about the climate like this. Policy should not be dictated, especially environmental policy, should not be dictated by public polling. Regardless, public polling is actually on the side of these protesters. But even putting that aside, when it comes to the environment, it's important to maybe put the environment first, as opposed to whatever the public may be thinking, right or wrong. Now, and again, I'm going to get to a bit on that in a bit here. But first, you may be wondering that massive shove, which really appeared like assault to me. So Harvard is apparently conducting a review of that. I have not seen any updates on that, but there was clearly one person engaged in a physical altercation, pushing that protester out of the room onto the ground, and you can't just do that. Now, on the Mountain Valley Pipeline, so the 300-mile Mountain Valley Pipeline is under construction and would bring natural gas from West Virginia to Southern Virginia, cutting a path through the Appalachian Mountains, a national forest, and hundreds of stream crossings. Approval of the $6.6 billion project was included in legislation last spring to raise the debt ceiling and was viewed as a concession made by the White House to Manchin for his support. So Manchin almost single-handedly revived the Mountain Valley Pipeline after it had seen delay after delay after delay. It's still being delayed. Wired has a really good piece here on as they write the last-ditch effort to stop the Mountain Valley Pipeline, writing that the pipeline is 6 years behind schedule, about $500 million over budget, and despite promises that it would be done by the end of last year, delayed once again. The remaining construction is over rugged terrain, with hundreds of water crossings left to bridge. And part of the delays is the ongoing protest. So morning after morning, week after week, pipeline workers clocked in only to find their work impeded. Grannies locked to rocking chairs in the pipeline path, teenagers glued to construction equipment, work sites crowded by 20 to 30 people intent on stopping the day's progress, more often than not successfully. So these ongoing protests are continuing to delay this project, even though it's nearing completion, but it's not yet done. Now, I want to get to, just how much things have changed. Back in the early 90s, Canada and the U.S., under two conservative leaders, George Bush Sr. and Brian Mulroney, passed, or I should say ended, acid rain. The environment was not a controversial topic, at least not to the extent that it is now. Back in the 90s, it was clear that yes, we should do what we can to protect the environment, and we know what to do based on listening to scientists that are experts in the field. So after years of prodding and lobbying to a lesser extent, or I should say lobbying on the side of scientists, but there was also some fossil fuel lobbying against this, but not anywhere near what it is now. After years of prodding and lobbying, the U.S. updated its Clean Air Act in 1990. New rules cut emissions of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, key elements in the creation of acid rain. The reductions were achieved in part by introducing the U.S.'s first national cap-and-trade system aimed at major polluters. That was followed by Canada-U.S. Air Quality Agreement signed by Mulroney and Bush in Ottawa in 91. The agreement was aimed at reducing pollution on both sides of the border that caused acid rain. So there was this universal agreement on this issue. They worked together to solve it, and look at how things have changed. Joe Manchin. Let's now focus on Joe Manchin. He, of course, this is back in 2022, torpedoed Democrats' climate agenda. Long ties to the coal industry. I don't necessarily have an issue with the headline, but long ties doesn't really give the full picture. He has holdings had holdings in 2021 valued at between $1 million and $5 million in EnerSystems Inc., the coal brokerage business he founded. So these long ties are the fact that he founded a company that benefits from the fossil fuel industry. In 2021, he made more than $536,000 from his EnerSystems holdings, the filings show. That's more than 3 times his annual Senate salary, showing that there is no winning Joe Manchin over with honey. The least you can do is embarrass him in front of other elites. And this piece is wonderful. Manchin staffers cash in with big oil. Wonderful, I guess, in a bad way, but just the level of corruption within Joe Manchin's staff. So American Prospect here, great piece. Shout out to Luke Goldstein. Check out all these people that worked for Joe Manchin and now work in the fossil fuel industry. So Manchin's longtime press aide, Sam Runyon, he's joined ExxonMobil's government relations team as their new policy communications director. There is Jonathan Cott, who went to work for a DC lobbying firm. That's Manchin's longtime senior aide. Again, ExxonMobil. Cott has lobbied specifically for ExxonMobil, disclosures show, as well as the American fuel and petrochemical manufacturers. And it shows he's privately called Manchin's office during deliberations over the Inflation Reduction Act, which, of course, Manchin helped to broker, essentially completely chopping down Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan to something that barely resembled it, taking out a lot of the climate change aspects of it. Last year, Manchin's chief of staff over 10 years, Lance West, he went to American Petroleum Institute as their vice president of federal relations, which is essentially a lobbyist. And then there's also Larry Puccio, the former Manchin chief of staff, who works on behalf of a number of fossil fuel clients now, including the Appalachian Natural Gas Operators Coalition, which lobbies on behalf of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. Puccio has also worked for Puccio, maybe I should say instead, has also worked for, excuse me, Diversified Energy, owner of 70,000 oil and gas wells across the U.S. Elliot Howard, this goes on and on. There's Elliot Howard as well. He's an Energy Committee staffer for Manchin, I guess currently. He's lobbied for a number of energy industry interests before working for Manchin, including ExxonMobil's oil company rival BP. And yeah, so like the level of corruption here, just on the staffers alone, let alone, or even separate from the fact that Manchin has launched his own companies actually in the fossil fuel industry. Manchin has, so just to put a bow on this, Manchin has consistently been a top recipient of oil and gas campaign contributions, obviously not even worth mentioning in this piece because that's so obvious, notching tens of thousands of dollars from the industry and its various trade associates. Manchin has his own personal ties to the energy business as well, including a number of coal companies. So it isn't just one. He's founded a number of coal companies in West Virginia in the 80s. Though Manchin put his stake in a blind trust, his children took over the companies, and Manchin netted $4.5 million from the companies, according to public disclosure reported on by The Intercept. personally benefiting, as of course his family is. Of course, he cares about his kids having lots of money. So even though it's a blind trust that his children control, he's still obviously working in the interest of that blind trust. Just the level of corruption here is off the charts. Making Manchin feel uncomfortable is the least these people can do, and it's fantastic to see.